Hey guys, Abhirath this side. So in this talk, my agenda for this talk is to sort of build a case for remembering things. We sort of feel that you don't have to remember things at all these days.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the agenda of this talk, to sort of build a case for remembering things and how to effectively remember things for the long term, forever. Okay. So how many of you feel that? So this is the agenda. So how many of you here feel that you don't have to remember things at all these days?
Less than how much we used to, I think.
Fair enough, fair point. Okay, show of hands, how many of you feel that you have to remember things? Okay, so my entire half presentation is, but okay, I think we should hammer the point home again. so, so a lot of knowledge is tacit knowledge, where you pick up things, over time. You don't formulate them into words. You don't pass them on. You just know. If you know, you know. That sort of knowledge. Like you're managing a team. A manager knows XYZ person is always late. You're reviewing somebody else's code. You see some patterns that you recognize. Okay, this code is probably bad. It can be improved. You haven't documented it somewhere. It probably can be documented, but it's not, and it's difficult to document. It's something you've observed over a period of time. That's called tacit knowledge. Like Tarun mentioned, it's difficult. You have to remember a lot less these days. You can always look them up online. So profession, things where you have to remember things to memory, commit things to memory. You have profession, you have exams, and you have nurturing hobbies, for instance. So there was the seminal paper on how memory improves, how memory builds expertise, how long term memory comes from committing things to memory. Expertise comes from committing things to memory. It's a 1990s paper. It was conducted over several years in several fields. So you can check this out later. Any questions so far? Okay. So at your profession, you're competent at your job, you implicitly remember things. It's not like you don't sit and memorize things. You implicitly, because of repetition, you remember things. Uh, Take a software job, for example. Limits of databases and decisions. You can't go and refer books every time you have a doubt. You go to a senior. The senior can't go and refer a book. They they sort of expected to know. Doctors, you see a lot of cases. In Ismail's case, for example, you see a lot of cases over time. You develop an intuition. Okay, this might be because of this. uh, Musicians, more songs. You commit more songs to memory. You have more chord structures in your head. You improvise better. You get better gigs. It is said that for a decent gig in India, you need to know at least 300 songs to be able to perform in English, to be able to perform in Hindi or any other regional language of that state. Sales, high-end sales. You remember nuances of your clients, personal details, the names about their families, to have personal connects. Then research, of course. You remember things from the past, and knowledge builds up over time. Exams, of course, you're expected to memorize things. Software engineering interviews, lead code. You prepare for an interview. You clear the interview, then you forget it. Same thing with ML data science. You're expected to implement a back propagation from scratch, but you never do that on the job. Nurturing hobbies. Yeah, this is a special case where you have a lot of hobbies and you want to keep in touch. For example, Anusha mentioned she read Russell and Norwig's Modern AI. An approach to modern AI. So even though because of repetition, now she can easily keep in touch with the latest papers. Like Amrit mentioned, he's from bio, but he keeps in touch with AI in general. So you read the Transformers papers probably, and then because of that, it's in your memory, even though you don't have it probably every nitty gritty detail, but it's still in your memory. And then when the time came for when LLMs came up, you could easily reference and you could easily relate to it. uh, Cooking, music, amateur radio, staying in touch with latest technology. So we sort of are on the same page that we have to remember things to, even though we can look them up online, right?
Yeah, that one quick question that comes to my mind is questions are demanded on the spot, sort of a thing.
Right.
On the spot, I need to act, and that's where I feel like a lot of professions, like in software, I can just sit and write code, and somebody's waiting after a week or 2 3 days. I have a lot of time to respond, but obviously doctors don't have that much time, and so in their case, this tacit knowledge is what you're calling it, right? Building a large storage of tacit knowledge becomes really important. Same thing with therapists and psychiatrists and all that, because you have to respond live in that moment itself. So that was just coming into my mind, that distinction, that the constraint that the profession puts on you, whether you want to have that large store of tacit knowledge or not. Just one thing that came to my mind.
It's a very valid point, and there are nuances to that. Like software engineering, for example, the principal engineer, their time is very limited, and they don't get time to prepare in advance. Like they have back-to-back meetings where different teams might have questions, and they'll have to know the systems in and out, like 20 microservices or 30 microservices in and out, and they'll have to make decisions on the spot in that duration. So, but it's a very valid point. Some professions do favor, they give you the luxury of being able to refer it at a later point.
The stakes are so high, which means you would want to make this thing. Human memory is valuable to someone. So you would want information rather than
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
So we'll talk about the brain for a bit now, the nuts and bolts of the brain. So your brain has these little white structures made of fat called myelin. So these are responsible for dexterity and intelligence in anything, both in physical and in cognitive fields. So what happens is when you use a neural pathway often, when you use it often, you have myelin stored in chunks across the brain, all over the brain. Those specific neural pathways, they get solidified. There's a wrapping, a coating around the neural pathway which forms over time. Use the pathway again and again. There's more coating over that. It's sort of like insulation. Like electricity flows through the neural pathway, right? So the layer of fat provides insulation, and the more insulation it has, it can flow faster. You can take decisions faster. If you are a tennis player, you'll excel at tennis faster. Golf, whatever, driving. So myelin is important, and it forms when the neural pathway is used repeatedly. Clear?
axon.
Yeah.
Think of an axon,
Hmm.
like a basic cell of the brain. So that it's a neuron. But it's not like a
Dendrites.
dynamo, right?
Dendrite.
So the stem, this myelin you have particle myelin sheet
Okay.
is what makes the synapse like fire fast.
Okay.
That's what happens.
Interesting. Thank
But
you.
is there like a limit to the number of neural pathways?
Limit to the number of neural pathways.
Yeah, I'm sure. Why? It's like a physical structure, right?
Limit to what?
To the number of like neural pathways you can strengthen.
Yeah, like close to more than that. But based on the permutations, but
I think cognitively has to be enormous.
And
Everything can a person get one man in everything, basically.
No, but it has certain structures. So I heard blind people, the region where it does visual reasoning, the brain does like some other process. Right. So this sort of plastic in certain ways, but no, I get plasticity, but I'm trying to see if there's like limit, yeah.
But this is something I would
Like if you try really hard, can you memorize everything? Like if you have enough time in the world, like can you memorize everything in the world?
he'll tell us
Yeah,
how to do it. How to do it.
So there was an interesting book, The Power of Habit. So Eugene, what was the? Has anyone read the book by any chance? So the patient suffering from dementia or some other Parkinson's or dementia, I don't recall, and they've lost all ability to. They don't remember names, don't remember anything, but the neural pathway was still there. That they walk to the park and they come back home. So it's forever, but it weakens over time. But the count of the limit, I think, Ismail will be able to answer it better.
look it up, but then nobody had that much time to.
Yeah, no, I'm saying if we had infinite time, so is it physically possible to encode all that knowledge?
But you also have to recall it. Yeah, he'll tell us how to resolve, but
One of the things I heard, so in the first few days and months and years of the baby's life, right? So there are trillions of neural connections, and typically what happens is we prune them as we go. So by the age of 3, most of it gets pruned. But then for children on the spectrum, so the ADHD or autistic, much of the pruning doesn't happen. So they are able to draw patterns across completely different things that to neurotypical people it seems unconnected, but they would be connected by some some small detail. So
Yeah, it actually makes sense. You have a lot of diverse ideas from totally unrelated things, which is very cool. The new color, for example. Okay, sorry to make it personal. Yeah. So, yeah. So for myelin creation, struggle is important. So you have to go outside a comfort zone. Like you're playing a tennis player, for example, you practice tennis. The practice session just has to be a little above your comfort zone, and that forces myelin creation. Any sort of struggle, be it both physical and mental skills, repetition plus struggle gets you dexterity and intelligence. So, any guesses why struggle is important for myelin creation?
it's like building muscles, fire. I mean,
Building muscle.
and logically, like,
it's allocating the glucose resources, the
Fire
rainforest
together.
resources.
One thing is that you need ATP for all of this,
Hmm.
and the more cognitive resource you put into a task, the more ATP you're going to consume. And to account for that, you need more mitochondria. So you would have to recruit more resources towards the brain to increase the myelin production and general, like the capacity of your brain to handle cognitive tasks.
Very interesting, but I'm not sure if that might be true. But that's not the answer I had in mind.
There's also a thing that
That might be true. More energy, but
and also like we have that evolutionary defense mechanism to prevent us at least putting excessive cognitive load on ourselves. We create these toxic substances which prevent us after a certain point because it doesn't make evolutionary sense to invest too much cognitive labor into a specific task. So you accumulate these toxins over time.
Okay.
So
So by struggling, you die faster.
not die faster, but perhaps you could accelerate your
Aging.
in certain ways, although it's very disputed at the moment.
Okay, I've read something very contradictory, but we can discuss that probably like very contradictory to this.
the brain is very lazy, so
Yeah.
it needs to be shown that this is something that's required.
Hmm.
So struggle is something
Okay, very close. Yeah,
Fire together, yeah.
that happens, but that's not the reason why struggle is important for that. Yeah, you were saying something. Sorry.
When the brain perceives it as this is something to be remembered and it's like you're building the muscle memories.
Yeah, that's a valid point. So what I was coming to at was, so when you struggle, right, it has to frequently fire the same neurons again and again. If you can do something comfortably, it doesn't fire as often as it would when you're struggling. So when you struggle, you're actually forcing myelin creation to happen faster because the neural pathways access a lot more. Muscle building is more of damage and repair. Struggle is more of the number of times electricity flows through that pathway. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
It's also take a problem in education.
Hmm.
It kind of reduces the struggle.
Right.
Increases the gap and
Hmm.
if new people can't struggle to
Hmm.
and yeah, we sort of cross. We have struggled and we learned.
Hmm.
What do you do with the current generation? I think it's hard unless you kind of put them with
Hmm.
more access to these tools. It's harder to restructure.
It is true. It is true. But it's sort of like we didn't have the internet back then. Our parents didn't have the internet back then, and they didn't have to struggle. They had to struggle a lot more than us to get information out. So maybe we adapt. I don't know, but
So maybe they have struggle in idea formation, connecting different. But
You have to progress still like step by step. Really. So what is now happening is like you have to make a huge. So this level of higher level of confidence. We get that through easier lower ones, but for lower ones, these models are not allowing them to struggle.
AI will take us in a
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
You should ban. Like every time you say AI, like you put a training. When we use the word struggle over here, in what context? So, for example, if I'm trying to recall something, that's one sort of struggle. But if I'm trying to solve a math problem, that is another sort of struggle. So, with both of them, result in the creation of Myelin sheet or the augmentation of existing Myelin sheets.
So, what does struggle mean? So, struggle is outside your comfort zone where you have to put in effort. For example, now I can catch a ball that's thrown at 80 km per hour. That's in my comfort zone. That will not force new myelin creation. There is some myelin creation that will, of course, happen because of the repetition. But it won't be as much as if I practice at 84 km per hour. If you throw it at 84 km per hour. And coming to math, a little more challenging problem that will force me to use other parts. Force me to connect other parts of my other existing knowledge, like you said, right? Fire and wire together. So level of difficulty, that is struggle.
Right.
I
I
rem-
feel like like what is happening
Hmm.
right now. It's like in front of my eyes, violent creation is happening a lot.
I'm repeating the same thing again and again.
Because you're giving this talk, right? And like your violent creation has to happen when you're giving the talk to another
Right,
audience
right,
for
right.
the first time on your stage.
Right.
You are.
Hmm.
No, I'm not struggling. I'm saying in front of my eyes it's happening in his brain, Abhirath's brain. The myelin creation right now is happening. This is a struggle, right?
Yeah.
It's not a normal, like we are in a comfort
Right.
zone, but you are like in the center of stage sort of thing.
And I have to think of new ways to put the point across. I'll have to
Right.
encode it.
Right.
So a lot more is happening. So it is struggle. Does that answer? Yeah. So probably 7 times 7, it's 49. That is not struggle, but probably a differential equation. Yeah, above your comfort zone basically. I know your name right now, but after 3 days, I try to recollect your name. That is a little more struggle. So, and then you have the forgetting curve. Oh, sorry, one last point about myelin. So, you have myelin just from an evolutionary standpoint. So, why is it designed the way it is? You have these blobs that roll across the brain, right? So, instead of create humans, it sort of gives humans intelligence and adaptability. Uh, we can we can choose what we want to excel at by repetition. We can force myelin creation around those neurons. So that's why humans are sort of versatile, malleable, where you can do something, and myelin resources are directed towards those pathways. It's not you're not born with myelin already coated around your neurons. You probably are, but there is a lot of scope for yeah. You have stores that I think I'll redirect it to Ismail.
These are fact based, right?
Hmm.
Just use a fact.
It's not a limited resource.
So, and like 60% of brain is mild, 60 or 40, like yeah. Hmm. But there's a reserve, and it's not directly it's not benefiting you in any way unless it wraps around.
Yeah, so my point is there is a limit.
If there is a reserve, then there is a limit. But I feel like there is some new creation of myelin also happening, right? It's not just like
I assume it should happen because it's just
we
fact.
can just check it. So how it works.
But myelin creation can be adjusted.
What else? Clears.
Are they connected to?
I am not aware of. I don't know about clear cells.
What's the 15 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
We should go faster.
Yeah, so you have this forgetting curve where you learn something, and within one day, you forget a majority of, and over time, it becomes in 7 days you forget 90% of what you learned. So, yeah, this is the forgetting curve. Nothing fancy here. So now coming to, yeah. So that's about the brain, myelin creation, struggle, repetition, forgetting curve. Now we come to memory systems. You have different ways to remember things to enhance memory. You have, that is debatable, but
I knew you would say something like that.
I can always counter it to you have mnemonics where you have techniques like linking, pegging, acronyms. You have these guitar chords. You create acronyms. Every boy gave a penny, a dollar, and you have stuff like that. You have linking. You create words. You create a story. If I want to remember the names of all the people who attended this event today, I can sort of create a story. Okay, uh, uh, Lokesh is playing with the pens while he was drinking Coke. I can add visual details, I can add auditory details to sort of uh, enhance my memory, and I can sort of remember it. You have visualization, like just mentioned, storytelling, memory palace. Memory palace, you all. So to get on the same page, you have a place you're very familiar with. You walk across the place, and you put people and things that you want to remember. You place them there, and then you have space repetition systems. This is what my talk is about. So the entirety of the talk I'll be focusing on space repetition systems. So what is space repetition system? What is space repetition? So when you revise critical information just when you're about to forget. Now people have conducted research. Uh, you have the forgetting curve, right? It was in 1980s or 1970s. Correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, so a researcher found out that you forget X information at these intervals, at these specific intervals. So if you revise you revise that material just before forgetting it, you extend your memory for X amount of days, and after X amount of days, you're about to forget it again. So that's the gist of space repetition. Each review pushes the forgetting curve exponentially. Like the first time you review the information, you remember it for one additional day. The second time you review the information, you might retain it for 4 additional days, and the third review you might retain it for maybe 12 additional days. It goes so on and so forth. Do you see the pattern here? You need fewer and fewer reviews after each repetition.
So the memory curve, I think it doesn't just depend on. I don't think it is deterministic,
It's not deterministic.
because there may be things that we learn once. Maybe we learn in grade one and we still remember. Is there some kind of a notion of magnitude, some impulse or some impact that material had on you, which makes it like really, really hard to forget? So the memory curve, like, flexible.
Yeah, so I had a slide on good at remembering, bad at remembering. I removed it. So what happens is first grade you have tests, right? You recall the information because of tests.
No, so let's say forget first grade, but something like you learn the fact like octopuses don't have why do I
The power of the cell.
or like octopuses don't have any
3 hearts.
whatever.
Hmm.
Or that's it all.
Evolutionary something. Okay, so there's no evolutionary link. Now that's like a fact that is a very surprising thing. It's something that is hard to forget once you learn. Okay? So I don't have to go and memorize ever. So now that I've learned it, so I'm just asking like, is there this notion of an impact or an impulse function? Because I know neurons have that, right? So they
Hmm.
like it is isn't it like an electric impulse? Doesn't that have an impact on?
I'm not aware of the neurochemistry behind that, but generally the brain remembers things which are you have emotional connection with. Uh, other than that, like you've learned something new, for example, and you connect it to an existing body of knowledge, like you have a corpus of knowledge within you, and you make a connection, then you are unlikely to forget that forever. Otherwise, if something which really stands out, I tell you something which really uh, blows you apart, that you'll never forget. So this is for, I think, general day-to-day activities and your day-to-day job probably. So what happens here is you're about to forget it on day one. You learn some new information which you aren't exposed to on a general basis. You're about to forget it. What happens is you review the information again over here, and then it pushes it to day three. You review it again here, and you notice the distance becomes thicker and thicker. So it's sort of it reaches the point where you never forget. Over here, you sort of forget it. Even after the first review, you sort of forget it by day 10 probably. After the second review, it probably goes on till day 30 probably. It's exponential basically. So it sort of becomes an optimization where you find the minimum number of reviews required to remember concepts forever. That is the crux of spaced repetition.
So then the 80% thing is important. If you have to remember around 80% to revise again.
80% is not important, but because of forgetting curve, you forget. The percentage is not important.
I think if you wait longer using
Zero again.
zero again and you'll get it to the maximum retention.
Right.
More long.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that elapsed time will reduce. I think the 3 will become 2.75 or something.
So it's saying instead of 80, let's say you recollect only at
70, then it won't be 3, it will be 2.5. If it goes down, the red thing goes down to 70, then it will not be 3, but in this essence 3. Yeah, the next
when
the length of the red 9-second one, which is going from 1 to 3, that will become shorter. If you start with the
It's sort of a sweet spot. I mean, if you do at 90%, there's no struggle. I mean, there's no point. And below that, like he mentioned, again, you lose a lot of traction. So, from what I've seen graphs, I've seen 80 and 90 percentage. But I don't know the exact implication, what will happen if it's 90 or 80. But I think it's sort of a sweet spot where you struggle a bit.
and it also depends on the topic.
Hmm.
What the topic itself.
Right.
That
Right.
will decide the graph also.
Hmm.
Like some things are more comfortable with,
Hmm.
some things some other person is less comfortable with. So their graph for that particular concept will look very different.
Right.
So it's a context dependent movement of
Right.
of this graph.
Fair enough.
So if I want to remember something for let's say 5 or 10 years, how many repetitions?
5 or 10 years.
10 years, sorry.
I don't know the number, exact number. Yeah.
They can't be.
I think we can back calculate from
Your question is-
yeah, how many, like if it's exponential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a. I can give you the numbers. Yeah, but
No, like I'm wondering if
Sorry?
stat.
it's not math. So he observed it in patients. So he tested it on multiple patients where when they forgot, they asked him to memorize something, and there's a paper on this as well. So the algorithm uses a formula, the software uses a formula, but the actual research was done on actual patients, and they tested their memory for X days. Yeah.
Eventually, it uses on a lot of things. So we like eventually have one entire day for just revising everything that it uses on.
Yeah.
We have 7 minutes.
Backlog.
Okay.
We have 7 minutes. Can you just finish the
So-
we have time.
So effective SRS, space repetition. So you have the software called Anki, and that is what we'll be using right now. So Anki makes memory a choice rather than a haphazard event left to chance. Michael Nielsen. Okay, so this is sort of an Anki card where the front is you ask a question or you prompt yourself to struggle and remember something you have to answer. So what notes make up the D major triad? And this is the back portion of the card, and this has the answer. This is what a card looks like. Okay. So the process looks like this. You learn some new material. You internalize it. You connect it to an existing body of knowledge. If it's something you already are aware of, like you asked, right, Anusha, or if it's something new, you sort of internalize it. You can express it in your own words. It should be at that level of understanding. And you create cards with questions for that knowledge. Okay. So Anki, what it does is once you create those cards, Anki uses an algorithm. It uses a formula. I haven't read much about it. SM2 algorithm where it schedules reviews, and you open the app. It'll ask you a question. You answer the question. You struggle for a bit. Answer the question. You rate yourself. Was it comfortable? Was it hard? Was it easy? If it's hard, it'll prompt you. It'll reset the cycle. It'll push you back and reset the cycle again. You have a lot of alternatives available. We can just skip that. Most of literature available online revolves around Anki these days. So I don't. We showed a card.
We have snapshots.
Yeah, already showed a card here.
But
So
it doesn't have any hard, comfortable, and that.
okay.
Right? So I just felt like maybe people will get a better idea. But it
I
will
think
take time.
I think it's so now how much effort you have to put into this process. So high one-time effort. Once you internalize a concept, once you understand something, you have to create effective cards. It's a whole process. It's an art and a science, and it takes time to learn. So the average lifetime on one card is 4 to 7 minutes. You create a card across your lifespan. You will spend 4 to 7 minutes on that card reviewing it, be it 20 reviews, 25 reviews, whatever. You'll spend 4 to 7 minutes reviewing the card, and so this guy Michael Nielsen, he created 10,000 cards over 2.5 years. It takes him 15 to 20 minutes every day to review the cards. You create a card yesterday, 100 cards yesterday, you get 100 cards to review today. The 1 day buffer. I created 30 cards last week. I have to review them as well. So it's 130 cards today. So approximately it takes 15 to 20 minutes on average if you consistently use Anki. So it's not a lot of majority of the effort goes in creating cards. After that, it's a very streamlined process. Okay, so encoding knowledge into Anki cards. So you can just read this real quick. So next question is, what should you remember? You can't remember. You can't encode everything into cards. You can't. So let's get into the process of card creation. Every card, your card deck, your collection of cards should be truly personal. You connect it to existing body of knowledge, like I mentioned. Sharing cards is mostly a bad idea unless it's factual. Like you have a lot of medical decks where you have factual information which is shared. You have vocabulary decks which can be shared, but apart from that, it's
Maybe deck, you can explain what deck is.
collection of cards. So yeah. So a deck is a collection of cards. So
Medical deck is like there is a whole medical community of like medical students and all who have created these cards and posted them on public database so that other students can just use those cards. And so for that kind of information, you can share it. But
thank you.
So you have to keep loading different decks, or you have one deck and
So a lot of people experimented on that. They say you have one deck, so that it's random. So that the question thrown at you during a daily review is random. If you have a medical deck, one after the other, it's all medical questions. It's all medical questions.
Probably the struggle is not as much.
Yeah, randomness, and real life it's random, right? So some people argue that you have to have one deck. You put tags on your card so that you can sort it out later if you want. But it's one collection where yeah.
so put that right deck into your deck and shuffle it.
Yeah.
And is it typically like just a fact, or can we put like diagrams and stuff as well?
You can do both. We'll come to that. I haven't covered images in this presentation, but you can use images. So you have something called, okay, I'll answer that in a bit. And creating cards is also it's very personal. It's sort of a meta learning experience where how deep you want to go. Is it really important? You figure out for yourself where do you fit, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. But that being said, there are some basic pointers by long-term Anki users, which I'll be covering now. You can also use Vatsal pointed this out and to stress on this. Create cards. You can use AI to create cards that align with your values, and you can sort of automate the process if it helps. So the pointers are knowledge you care about. Irrelevant information, don't create cards. It's sort of a deterrent to review. Elaborative encoding. You intuitively understand it and you can encode it in your own tongue. Each card should focus on one specific detail. Attack knowledge from multiple angles. If you have a concept, create multiple cards around it. We'll see in a moment. It should be deterministic, a card. It should produce the same answer. It should not be vague. It should not be. It should encourage recall instead of stating a fact. The sources. Okay. So this is an example. So you can quickly. The human gut is often called the second brain. It has 500 million neurons and constantly communicates with the brain through the gut-brain axis. Surprisingly, about 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. It's also responsible for the mysterious force called the gut instinct. Signals are processed in the gut before your conscious brain catches up. The gut is responsible for the overall stress levels and mental well-being of an individual. So, how would I go about creating cards for this? This is a very bad example. Can somebody tell why? This is the front. Sorry? Two?
Yeah, everything is down here, right? It's not one.
Yeah. Two. It's not atomic. It's not. It doesn't focus on one specific detail. I don't want to. What like my goal here is to memorize. Is to remember concepts. I don't want to memorize the paragraph verbatim. There's no point in this. And if I see this card for review, like what should I recall? So I don't have anything specific to recall. So how I would go about card creation is, I would have factoid of information, and this is how I would.
So you said you need to integrate your existing knowledge. So now these a lot of these factors.
Hmm.
So let's say you also read about serotonin.
Hmm.
Like that. So how do you let's say connect these?
So, for example, this question: how does a bad gut increase stress, increase immune system activation? I already know that increased immune system activation leads to higher body temperature, and those sort of. Assume that I don't know it. If I care about it, I create a card. If I don't care about it, I don't create a card. You can also assume that a card already exists for this in my deck.
I think it's more, I don't know if you're asking this question, like, in the system, like how obsidian and stuff connected, like, is there like a connection between
Okay.
cards where you can kind of.
No, not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. It's not.
Like the internal knowledge base, you're like creating an imaginary link.
So what I would do is, your internal knowledge base should probably be in a note-taking app, Evernote, Obsidian, whatever you're comfortable with. And then whatever you want to remember, you can probably encode it here. But some people, okay,
Whereas Anki plugin in
okay, I haven't, okay,
Like,
interesting.
is there any benefit to linking them, like maybe some kind of, or is it better to have random cards, or is it better to kind of have like related concepts, cards being shown next to each other, I mean after each other?
It,
because once you have sufficient weight,
Mhm.
you can make these deductions.
Hmm.
If this increases, this decreases,
Hmm.
and that'll be like multiple steps.
Right. That's how it promotes learning, right? You get bombarded with information again and again. That's how it promotes learning. So you will obviously make those connections in your head, but Anki doesn't make those connections.
Yeah, I'm saying like wouldn't that be better if related concepts, the cards show up one after the other, so you kind of form that connection.
Every card is independent of the other card.
Yeah, in the system.
Huh.
But is there like any research that
It's asking for feature requests.
Feature-
For Anki.
like
You have tags.
Instead of it being completely random, like you're talking about serotonin here, maybe there's another fact about serotonin
Right.
in my deck.
Huh.
Does it make sense to show that card next so that you make that, or is it better to have it random?
It's better to have it randomly for recall purposes.
Got it.
But for connection, you can have separate decks. You can create tags. You can probably review by tags if you want to. But I don't think I'm not aware of this. And also, that's not the goal of Anki, right?
That is more
No,
valuable.
but if you make the connection, you're likely to remember it much better.
Right.
So if the software helps you do that
But
connection.
you learn that information at different points and intervals in time, and you'll get that card at a different interval, anyways.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, yeah, it's a feature request. It's a feature request.
We're talking about the medical tech concept. It's like it's better to have one software and just one medical pack of that.
No, he's talking about something else. He's talking about connection between ideas. Like, even in a medical tech, right, sometimes we're in the stomach area, let's say, and after reading one fact, one part about stomach, suddenly I'm in brain, neurons and all. It would have probably been nice to have something connected to stomach show up next. but the system doesn't know that. It's dumb in that sense. The Anki system. It just shows based on what you have. It doesn't internalize this knowledge at all in any knowledge. So it's very dumb in that sense. All it cares about is how you frequent
one
this
particular,
action is.
one atomic.
One atomic and frequency which it shows up is what it cares about.
Right.
Like using that formula.
I think what you're talking about is a combination of space repetition and storytelling.
Right.
So
Right.
mind map is a storytelling. So
Right.
if you have something like obsidian which links those together, then I think the memory work will be much
It will be
more
augmented,
compelling.
more augmented.
Right. So sort of note taking is sort of so that you don't have to go to the original source again and watch the entire video or read the entire book. You take notes for yourself or some concepts. This is sort of to imprint it in your brain. That's my mental model at least. You watch a 3 hour video, you can't watch the video again. You take notes like a 1 page or 2 page.
But
And
then, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no time. Is
Yeah.
a little bit less, so I want to move.
so have you guys read this?
Yeah.
Factoids, and you can go as deep as you want for your use case. Okay. So is this card good or not? It's music. It's a music card. I should have mentioned.
It's good.
It's a good card. Okay. Now you'll be creating cards. Sorry. This is not a card. This is something you'll have to read and come up with cards for yourself.
Oh, okay.
We can probably just do this and wrap it up.
How do we do the?
You use your phone, or you can use the A4 sheets which Gurkaran got.
We have three cameras.
So
These are disconnected. This one.
yeah, this is a paragraph, a body of knowledge, some concepts that you want to internalize. So how would you go about creating cards? Like just create the front and back of the card. Cue a question and an answer. Answering.
How can we make this a group activity over there?
Sure.
No, I don't have no place. No place. Don't have business. Okay. So how many cards do you have?
I have around just 250 cards.
How much time do you spend in a day?
I just started this like using it 3 months back. So I'm the wrong person to. Huh?
5-10 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes probably.
I mean, I've been using it for very long time.
I'm very curious to know whether that storytelling aspect
Hmm.
will help us remember things much better.
Right.
There is frequency, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe make you struggle less because you have those ratings, right? Like,
Okay.
let's say that
Huh.
story helps me kind of recall much quicker, then maybe that card will drop much later in my
Right.
frequency. Maybe.
And your point is very valid because it forces you to give the answer. You don't think outside that particular box.
Right.
So
Because
yeah.
everything in our kind of brain is interconnected, right? Like
Hmm.
nothing stays in isolation.
Hmm.
I mean, at least that's
Can
what
we start the card creation process?
Yeah, you can start reading this, guys, and you can start. How would you create cards for this? You can use your phone. You can form groups.
Yeah, I'm thinking like group activity sort of thing.
Sure. But how would we divide the task into?
No, I just
discuss.
keep it open, like to the whole group. Small groups, or I'll just write it and make the card right there.
Okay.
In Anki.
What is RAG?
What is RAG?
What is LLM? What are LLMs about?
So this is where I think very interesting how to form a good question when you come into existence.
Right.
And I think we can play with everyone's thing
Hmm.
and sharpen and shape a good question.
Right.
So yeah, anyone can speak out whatever comes to their mind for
Any volunteers for?
card creation. Anyone wants to say anything, speak it aloud.
Have you guys read the paragraph, by the way?
Yeah, you can read
Yeah,
the
take
first
you.
one.
Oh, you're okay.
How do you normally update an LLM?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
How do you?
Normally update an LLM? Just
Read,
reiterate.
read, like,
Retrain the model.
issue with retraining? What is the
Disadvantage of retraining.
disadvantage of
You want to try?
retraining?
You're yawning, so.
Anyone wants to remember abbreviations? Right. So this is where subjectivity comes. Like some people will not give shit about abbreviations, but some people will want to have their memory know exactly what the abbreviation means because they want to explain it to others, and others will ask, "What is rag, rag, rag?"
More than the abbreviation. What do you want to know? Why is it called and what is it actually?
Yeah.
I mean, can be like, why,
Yeah.
an example of like, why is it called?
Why do you have that?
So this is a very valid thing, Bhishma. But in your case, you use it at work, you know it, and you're not going to be tested.
Like the action or something.
Yeah, but what if I'm like writing an exam and I might need to know the definition. I mean the full form of rag. Yeah.
Exams are kind of.
Yeah, it's
You need to, I mean, you're doing all this, you're doing
a
for.
concept.
No, but people are doing for exams also, right? In that case, they will want that case. Yeah.
So is this case that you don't need the full form?
Yeah, in Bhishma's case, he doesn't need the full form because he uses it at work, and when we going to test him for the full form.
Even for remembering the full form, if you know it in the context of
Hmm.
what was done, it's easier for you to generate. Because you can intuitively guess.
Right.
That's what, rather than just remembering.
No, but example of like senior doctors with college and so on. They are the ones who will need the contextual
Hmm.
in person, like while you're jamming or something. So for that, I think you will need these while
Right, right. You have it established already. Yeah.
What we said, no, but that's after you already have this.
Okay. Any other cards? We'll take this discussion.
Do the discussion afterwards. Let's make a couple more cards.
Does the answer have to be Abhirath pattern?
No, you can look up additional information to augment, to enhance your understanding, and you can create other cards.
Right. It's a very personalized thing. Like it all depends on what you care about.
It's like flashcards, right? Basically. That's it.
Galvanize app or Duolingo, something like that.
Why is it called? What is it?
Why is it balanced? Why every from like it's generic text. You don't have to be very.
Why is it called that? And what is it stand for? Many questions in one card.
Ideally not. If they are like, for example,
Like, so why is it called RAG and what does it stand for?
no. It's a conceptual question. Why is it called RAG, and what does it stand for? You can have a separate question for what does it stand for, right?
So we cannot do that.
You can do it, but it's not ideal. It's not the best use of spaced repetition.
What one thing that you can do is, let's say there are two answers in a sentence or something, two different pieces of information you want to know. You can sort of put a fill in the blank sort of thing. It's a different type of card. It's not this kind. It's called this
Close.
is the basic card that I'm creating in Anki right now. But you have something called as close edition. So if I do this, what that means is I can just select this. I selected that, right? And what I will do next is, where is that?
I think
Where is that?
Curly brace, or you can just put curly brace, C1.
Sorry. Where is that thing?
Curly brace, curly.
It's not, I just, okay. Yeah, curly brace.
Sorry?
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
No, I'm using this after a while. And this can be your end basically. Or something. So now what will happen is when you're remembering this card, it will just be a fill in the blank sort of thing. You can say this is where rag comes in, and you have to basically remember what in the bracket is. So this way you can have like a whole sentence which has two pieces of information that you want to remember, and you put a dash C1, C2, and then it will be dash. You will have to recall from your memory what goes in that first part of the sentence and what goes in the second part. So in that sense, you can have two pieces of information in the same card. Can you show us that? Huh? Show us that. Yeah. I'm added this. One. Okay. I ended up keeping this in the same text. Now I'll have my card show up. So
world domination. You can just browse the deck and you can just preview that card alone instead of you can filter by tag. You can just go down, scroll down real quick. Uh,
those are
you had a tag, right? Augment. Yeah, you can just preview the card.
yeah.
Preview, yeah.
Yeah, this is the question, and you have to recall. And then that thing below was the hint that I gave.
Or it is copied from the
Yeah, I just copied directly. Just to give an example of
Close deletions.
two pieces of, in this case, it is one piece of information. But yeah,
So you can have images here, and you can also delete parts of the image, and you can sort of you have to recall the missing part of the image.
yeah, the medical students just fallen completely in love with this.
Yeah.
tool. There are more on the subreddit of Anki. So Reddit, everyone knows subreddits, right? So subreddit of Anki has less subscribers than medical Anki only. Yeah, or more subscribers than medical Anki. So there is just so much excitement about this whole. Because you have to just recall, like constantly memorize things. So in the long term, the time is not much.
So
now after you said that, and they're like open source tools that you can just copy paste a paragraph and create cars you can edit and
Well, that's yeah, exactly. So this is something maybe you want to touch on, that using tools to increase the speed of creating cars is in my opinion a problem.
Okay.
I don't know if you have a slide on that, but
I don't have a slide on that, so
yes.
it won't be personalized. Like you won't relate to it, and
No, but you can
factual
still-
information is fine. Factual information is fine. So factual information is fine, but for concepts, you'll have to probably train GPT to you'll give it a taste of how you want the cards and copy your style. Yeah, that can be done. So we'll have a look at my cards. Okay. Thank you. So how does ChatGPT provide? I've added information from outside. So how does ChatGPT provide answers based on recent events? So ChatGPT it wasn't up to date with recent events, right? So added that detail. Okay. Why don't companies constantly train new information like how Anusha mentioned? What is the harm, time and money? So to give a context of the quantum of money spent, how much money was spent on GPUs to originally train GPT-4, 63 million USD. All this information outside the paragraph, right? To build understanding for myself. Uh, huh. Yeah, excellent question. I had like when I initially had the thing, I had the same thing, so I made a card about that as well. So rags are also intelligent in their own way. How so? Rag is basically semantic search. You search for heart diseases. There's a title cardiovascular diseases. It sort of understands the context and gives you that. So you have 10,000 articles on various topics. You tell the rag you want things related to the heart, to cardiovascular health. It fetches those paragraphs alone. No, no. So there are 10,000 news stories. You have a blog, okay, live. You have a database. There are 10,000 articles in it. ChatGPT is not aware of those articles. So the RAG, what it does is it will go to the database. It will fetch the relevant information and give it as context to the LLM.
Right.
Asking a question to the LLM,
Hmm.
LLM goes and talks to RAG, and that thing gets the documents. And so the sentence creation is done by the LLM. Basically.
Yeah.
Just context specific.
So you encode it as vectors and then you find the closest vector and then give that as a
Since RAG cannot not leverage language, it's not large and it's not to talk about.
It's external data.
RIT is just a channel. So it's referring to think of a textbook. It's referring to a specific question or a textbook to answer the question. Instead of referring to its general body of knowledge.
So
the book. Single book and answer the question.
Open book exam sort of.
Yeah.
So the model doesn't have to be retrained again. So to build that understanding, make an example, 10,000 news articles that are in the part of GPT's LLM, blah, blah, blah. So at a high level, what does the RAG do? It performs a search on these 10,000 documents and gives